Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy English Spark channel. I'm so excited to have you here today. In this series, we'll follow Ethan's journey from prison walls to a brand new life through 10 powerful chapters, each one packed with real-life vocabulary and dialogue you can practice. Together, we'll sharpen your English listening and speaking skills, build your confidence, and learn to use phrases straight from our story in real conversations. Ready to light up your English? Journey with Chapter 1 through Chapter 10. Let's get started. Chapter 1. The Unchanging Cell. I open my eyes before the bell rings. Gray stone fills my view. Cold air touches my skin. I lie on a narrow metal bed. The mattress is thin. The blanket is rough. I lift my head and stare at the ceiling. I know every crack, every dark spot, every spider's web. Nothing ever changes here. The guard walks past my door. His boots hit the floor with a hard, steady rhythm. 1, 2, 3. Then silence. I wait for the clank of the food hatch. It slides open with a scrape. A metal tray appears, pale. Oatmeal and a cup of lukewarm water. I whisper, "Thank you," but no one answers. The hatch slams shut. I sit up, swing my legs over the side, and reach for the tray. I eat slowly. The oatmeal is sticky and tasteless. Still, I chew each spoonful with care. It is the same breakfast I have received for 20 years. I never leave a single grain. Food is a gift. Time is the price. When the tray is empty, I place it next to the door. I stretch my arms. The cuffs of my shirt are frayed. My trousers are 2 sizes too large. I roll the waistband so they will not fall. I smooth my hair with my hands. No mirror hangs on the wall. I have not seen my own face since the day of my arrest. I imagine that my eyes are tired, my beard uneven, my skin as pale as the walls. A siren blares. Doors clang open down the corridor. It is exercise hour. I stand and wait. My door swings aside with a loud creak. I step into the hall. I keep my hands at my sides. Cameras watch from every corner. Guards watch too. No one speaks. I walk in single file with the other inmates. Some stare at the floor. Some stare at nothing. Some mumble to themselves. I hear coughs, footsteps, a distant shout. The air smells of bleach and damp concrete. We reach the yard. It is a rectangle of cracked asphalt surrounded by high fences and razor wire. A small patch of sky hovers overhead, pale, empty, unreachable. I breathe it in anyway. I walk slow circles around the yard. left foot, right foot, repeat. My shoes scrape the ground. I count each lap. 1, 10, 20, until a whistle blows. My heart never speeds up. My mind never wanders far. I cannot afford to dream too much. Back in the cell, I sit on the bed. I pull out a stub of pencil and a small notebook. The paper is almost full. I write the date in the corner. Then I draw a short line across the page. Another mark to show another. Day survived. The notebook holds thousands of lines now. Quiet proof that I am still here, still breathing, still waiting. Midday comes. The hatch opens again. A bowl of thin soup, a slice of stale bread. I dip the bread into the broth. I taste salt, onion, water, and not much more. I close my eyes while I chew. In my mind, I taste fresh fruit, hot tea, cake with sugar on top. The memory is sweet and painful. After lunch, I read. The prison library allows 2 books every month. Today, I hold a worn copy of Great Expectations. The pages are yellow. The spine is cracked. I trace each word with my finger. I whisper the sentences aloud. Hearing English spoken in my own voice keeps me sane. I pause often, let the words settle, feel the weight of every sentence. The story of Pip feels like a friend who visits me through paper. Later, the guard orders, "Lights out for inspection." I close the book and place it under the mattress. I stand in the middle of the floor, hands behind my head, feet apart. A guard steps inside, shines a torch into every corner, checks under the bed, checks the toilet, checks the seams of my clothes. He says nothing. He leaves. The door locks again. Afternoon drags on. I pace the cell. 10 steps from wall to wall. 10 steps back. I whisper the numbers. 1 to 10, 10 to 1. I think of the sun's position outside, though I cannot see it. I feel the light shifting ever so slightly through the small barred window near the ceiling. The beam crawls along the wall, then fades. Dusk arrives without fanfare. Dinner is beans and rice. I eat in silence. The noise of the prison fills the corridor, voices arguing, metal clanging, televisions echoing from distant cells. I focus on my spoon, on my slow breath, on the tiny motion of lifting food to my mouth. When the tray is empty, I push it aside. Night falls. Fluorescent lights hum overhead. They never turn completely dark, only dim. Shadows stretch across the floor like long fingers. I sit on the bed and close my eyes. I picture a forest path, green leaves, a running stream, the smell of pine, the sound of birds, my mother's laughter, my sister's hand in mine. I hold the images tight until they fade, until only the drip of a leaking pipe remains. I lie down, pull the scratchy blanket to my chin. I whisper a single sentence into the dark. Tomorrow will come. I say it every night. It is both a promise and a threat. I listen to my heartbeat, slow and steady. I breathe in cold air, breathe out warm hope. Somewhere far away, clocks tick, children play, lovers dance. Here, time barely moves, yet I count each second, because each second brings the future closer. And in that future lies a door that will one day open. The bell rings once more, lights dim further, silence thickens. I close my eyes and let the rhythm of the prison cradle me into shallow sleep. Around me stone stands silent, unchanging. Inside me, something small and stubborn refuses to die. Chapter 2. The Guard's Unlikely Mercy. I sit on the edge of my bed, tracing the same crack in the wall with my fingertip when I hear footsteps in the hall. They are slow, heavy, and measured, footsteps that belong to Sergeant Marlowe. He is the tallest guard, the sternest guard, the guard who never smiles. His keys clink against his belt like small metal bells of warning. The steps stop in front of my door. For a moment there is nothing, no movement, no sound, only the thick silence of fear pressing against my chest. Then the lock turns. Metal scrapes metal. The door swings open wider than it ever has before. Sergeant Marlowe stands in the doorway. The bright hall light frames his square shoulders and sharp jaw. Usually his eyes are cold and hard as flint, but tonight they look different. Softer, almost uneasy. He clears his throat once, twice. "Ethan Sinclair," he says, voice low but steady. My name echoes in the small cell. "Pack your things." I blink. The words do not fit together in my mind. Pack my things? I own nothing but a notebook, a pencil stub, and the clothes on my back. I rise to my feet. My knees wobble. I clutch the notebook tight. Sergeant Marlowe steps aside. "Follow me." His tone is not an order, not a bark. It is something gentler, something I do not know how to name. Mercy? Pity? I cannot tell. I shuffle into the corridor. The air out here smells the same, disinfectant and damp concrete. Yet everything feels new, fragile, and strange. My heart drums against my ribs. My breath sticks in my throat. We walk past cell after cell. Faces press against the bars. Some men stare in blank surprise. Others nod once, slow and solemn, as if giving a quiet blessing. To a fellow traveler, where are we going? I whisper. Marlowe answers without turning his head. Intake office. Intake. The word reminds me of the day I first arrived. Wrists in cuffs, eyes on the floor. I remember the room with bright lights, loud voices, endless questions. I remember feeling lost, angry, and small. Now we head there again, but everything is reversed. My wrists are free. My steps are my own. We reach a metal door painted dull green. Marlowe scans his badge. The door buzzes and swings open. Inside is a long wooden counter, a set of filing cabinets, and 2 guards I do not know. A single bulb hangs overhead, casting yellow light on stacks of paper. A woman wearing thick glasses sits behind the counter. She flips through a folder, stops on a page, then looks up at me. Her gaze is professional, unreadable. Prisoner 4021, she says. Ethan Sinclair. Sentence overturned. Immediate release authorized. My ears ring. I taste iron in my mouth. I hold the notebook so hard my knuckles turn white. The woman pushes a cardboard box toward me. These are your personal effects. I peer inside. A faded windbreaker, a broken watch, 3 coins, a photo, creased and worn, of a boy and a girl standing under a maple tree. My younger self and my sister, Hannah. I swallow hard. My eyes blur. I run my thumb along the bent corner of the picture. Sign here, the woman says, sliding a form across the counter. My hand shakes as I pick up the pen. I have not signed anything in 20 years. Each letter of my name feels strange, like carving marks into stone. When I finish, the woman stamps the form and nods once. Sergeant Marlowe leads me to a narrow bench by the wall. Put on your jacket, he says quietly. It's cold outside. I slip my arms through the sleeves. The jacket smells of dust and memories. Marlowe pulls a small envelope from his pocket. There's some cash in here, he says. It's not much, but it'll get you a bus ride and a hot meal. He presses it into my hand. His palm is warm, steady. I want to speak. Thank you. Why me? What happened? But my throat closes. All I can do is nod. He guides me down one last hallway. Each step seems to stretch time like taffy, long, slow, unbelievable. We reach a final door made of thick steel bars. Beyond it is night, wide and dark. Marlowe unlocks the gate. He looks at me, really looks, as if searching my face for something. "You were cleared," he says, almost in a whisper. "Evidence proved you innocent." "I'm sorry it took this long. Sorry." The hardest word I never expected to hear. It lands on me like gentle rain after a drought. I try to answer, but sound refuses to form. My lips tremble. Tears burn my eyes. He opens the gate fully. Cold air rushes in, carrying the scent of wet pavement and distant pine trees. It brushes my skin like a forgotten friend. Marlowe steps back. The moment hangs between us, heavy, quiet, sacred. I take one step forward, then another. My shoes leave the prison floor and touch the world outside. The sky is wide, dotted with silent stars. A pale moon hangs over distant rooftops. I breathe in, deep and shaky. The air tastes of earth and electricity. It fills my lungs with something sharp and bright, something like hope. Behind me, the gate clanks shut. The sound is final, but it is not cruel. It is the sound of a chapter ending. I look down at my hands. They are empty except for the small envelope and the worn photograph of Hannah and me. I place the picture inside my jacket pocket, close to my heart. Sergeant Marlowe stands on the other side of the bars. For the first time, I see a hint of a smile tug at the corner of his mouth. He raises 2 fingers in a small salute. "Good luck, Sinclair," he says. "Thank you," I manage to whisper. I turn toward the road. Street lights cast long pools of amber on the pavement. A distant engine hums. A dog barks somewhere in the shadows. Everything feels enormous, unfamiliar, and alive. I start walking. Each step is shaky but real. My pulse thunders. My breath clouds. In the night air, and the cold wind tastes like possibility. I am free. Chapter 3. Blinding Daylight. I stand on the empty road until the moon begins to fade and a pale line of silver slides across the horizon. A single street lamp flickers above me, buzzing softly like an old radio. Wind moves through the trees, and their leaves whisper a language I have almost forgotten. My breath rises in thin clouds. I keep walking, following the direction of distant traffic sounds, trusting my feet to remember what my mind cannot yet name. Soon the sky turns from coal to charcoal, then to dull ash. I see the outline of low buildings, telephone wires, and rooftops glistening with dew. Dawn gathers itself slowly, like a curtain lifting. I turn a corner and step onto a wider avenue. Cars sweep past in both directions, their headlights winking, their tires hissing on wet asphalt. I shield my eyes, startled by the speed, the noise, the brightness. A bus roars by. Cold air whips my face, carrying exhaust and the smell of coffee from somewhere unseen. For a moment I sway, dizzy, as if the whole street is a river and I am caught in its current. I find a bus stop bench and sit, gripping the edge with numb fingers. Neon letters on a nearby sign pulse red and blue. Open all night. I read them, aloud, testing the shape of each word on my tongue, amazed that the letters stay still while everything else races forward. The first true beam of sunlight breaks over the eastern rooftops. It strikes the wet pavement and explodes into 1,000 shards of white. I squint hard, tears springing to my eyes. The light is blinding, sharp, alive. Nothing like the thin, filtered glow that seeped through the prison window. This light has color inside it, gold at the center, then lemon, then pale peach at the softest edge. It pours over cars, over sidewalks, over my hands. I lift one hand and watch my skin turn bright as a lantern. The windbreaker looks almost blue-green in the blaze. Everything around me seems to ignite. A woman in running shoes trots past, earbuds in her ears. A small brown dog pulls on its leash behind her, nails clicking on the concrete. She glances at me, then looks away, her breath forming quick white bursts. I study the dog's wagging tail, the bounce of its fur, the freedom in its gait. No fence, no leash could ever keep that tail from moving back and forth. The sun climbs higher. Shadows retreat. Storefronts awaken. Metal shutters roll upward. Fluorescent lights blink on. A bell jingles as a baker props open his door. An invisible switch flips inside the city. Life surges. A postal truck screeches to a stop near a curb, and the driver hops out. She slams the door, whistles a tune I do not recognize, and disappears into a building with a canvas sack on her shoulder. The melody lingers in the air, sweet and quick, like a memory someone else forgot. My stomach growls, loud and sudden. I press a hand to it, surprised by the sound. Hunger is an old friend, but out here it feels different, sharper, more urgent. I pat the envelope in my jacket pocket. Coins rattle. I rise from the bench and step into a flood of white light that seems to erase every shadow I cast. Across the street, a cafe sign flashes in orange bulbs. Sunnyside Diner. Steam curls from the chimney above its roof. Windows glow amber. The smell of frying eggs drifts toward me, and my knees grow weak with longing. I wait for the traffic to thin, then jog across, careful to keep my eyes on the moving cars. Horns blare, tires squeal. Someone shouts, "Watch it!" I make it to the other curb, panting, heart hammering like a fist on a locked door. The diner. Door is red, bright as a ripe apple. A tiny brass bell dings when I push it open. Inside, light from wide windows floods the room, bouncing off chrome stools and shining on laminated menus. Sunbeams land on the floor in thick stripes, warm enough that I can almost see them bend and dance. I pause at the threshold, dazzled. A waitress with a silver ponytail waves a coffee pot. "Sit anywhere you like, hun," she sings, then glides down the aisle topping off mugs. I choose a booth by the window. Vinyl squeaks as I slide onto the seat. Outside, morning traffic thickens. Buses puff diesel. Cyclists weave past taxis. Office workers march in stiff coats. They all swim in the blinding daylight as if it were ordinary water. I sit motionless, soaking in every glittering drop. The waitress appears, setting down a glass of ice water. Sunlight scatters through the cubes like diamonds. "First time? Here?" she asks, cheerful. "First time? Anywhere," I whisper. My voice cracks. She tilts her head, puzzled, but smiles anyway. She flips open her order pad. "What'll it be?" I scan the menu, eyes darting over words that look both familiar and foreign. Pancake stack, veggie skillet, sunrise burrito. Letters blur. I point to the eggs and toast picture. "That, please. And coffee." Coming right up. She leaves. I fold my hands in my lap, staring at sunlit dust motes that drift through the air like tiny planets. They spin, collide, vanish. In prison, dust was gray, slow, heavy. Here the dust dances. The food arrives on a white plate rimmed in blue. 2 golden eggs with bright yolks, 4 half-moons of toast, a pat of butter melting into a glistening lake. The smell alone almost makes me weep. My fingers tremble as I pick up a fork. I cut into a yolk. Yellow gold spills out, thick and shining. I scoop a piece of toast through it and raise the bite to my mouth. Flavor explodes, warm, salty, rich, impossibly real. I close my eyes, chew slowly, feel every grain of butter, every hint of pepper. I swallow. The warmth slides down and reaches my core. Prison porridge never did that. Prison porridge only filled a space. This fills a hole. Coffee steams in a heavy ceramic mug. I grip it with both hands, letting heat seep into my knuckles. I sip. Bitterness spreads across my tongue, followed by something almost sweet. Steam fogs my lashes. Sunlight hits the coffee surface, turning it into a small black mirror. I see my reflection. Thin face, hollow cheeks, scruffy beard. Bathed in pure light. For the first time, I truly see myself outside those gray walls. The sight is strange yet true, like meeting a distant cousin who shares my eyes. I finish every crumb. I tilt the mug until the last drop reaches my lips. Then I set down a few coins. Too many, perhaps, but I do not trust myself to count. The waitress notices. "You sure, hun? That's more than the bill." "I'm sure," I say. My voice is stronger now, anchored by food and sunlight. She slips the extra coins back toward me. "Keep them. You'll need 'em later," she says, kindness flickering in her eyes. I nod, tuck the change into my pocket, and step back outside. Daylight has grown ferocious. The sky is no longer pale but blazing cobalt. Glass towers reflect the sun in blinding sheets. Cars gleam like polished coins. I squint, tears leaking again. But I do not hide from the light. I lift my chin and let it strike me full in the face. Heat soaks into my jacket, my hair, the tops of my hands. I feel layers of shadow peeling away. A city bus squeals to a halt nearby. Its doors sigh open. On the side, in giant letters, a banner reads, "New Beginnings Employment Fair. Today, 10 a.m., Civic Center." I have never heard of an employment fair, but the words new and beginnings pulse brighter than all the others. I step close, reading the time. Again and again, 10 a.m. I glance at the cracked watch I pulled from the cardboard box. The hands rest on 8:40. Sunlight flashes off the bus windows, and I remember Sergeant Marlowe's envelope. I can reach the Civic Center, I think. I can at least try. My feet tingle with a mixture of fear and possibility. The doors wheeze as they begin to close. A brave impulse surges. I jump forward and climb aboard. The driver, a middle-aged man with a salt and pepper mustache, barely glances up. $2, he says. I place coins into the slot. They clang, bright and loud. The driver pulls a lever. A ticket pops free. I take it, find a seat halfway down, and press my forehead to the window. The bus lurches into traffic. Streets blur past, flower stalls splashing color, office towers stabbing sky. children in uniforms racing for a crosswalk guard. Everything shines under the colossal sun. I watch it all, spellbound, until my eyes ache. I refuse to blink for fear I'll miss even a second. I am a man traveling through blinding daylight after 20 years of gray. The world outside is brilliant, untamed, overflowing with shapes and sounds my memory cannot catalog fast enough. Yet I keep looking, keep listening, hungry for every shred of brightness. As the bus rattles onward, I lay a palm against my chest, feeling the steady beat there. For so long my heart counted empty hours. Now it counts miles, minutes, possibilities. The light outside grows even fiercer, but I no longer shield my eyes. I let the brilliance pour through the glass, over my face, into my soul. If the sun wants to strike me blind, then let me be blinded. Blinded by a future that finally, mercifully burns with life. Chapter 4. Bread and Butter. I leave the bus in a burst of exhaust and find myself standing on a broad stone plaza outside the Civic Center. The employment fair will not open for another half hour, and the idea of waiting in a bright, echoing lobby makes my skin prickle, so I decide to walk a slow circle around the block. Pigeons hop between the paving stones, pecking at crumbs from an early vendor's cart, and the low winter sun bounces off every window until the street gleams like water. A cool wind slides under my collar, but beneath it I catch a gentler current, an unmistakable perfume of yeast, sugar, and browning crust. I close my eyes, trace the scent upstream, and let it guide me as surely as any map. When I open my eyes again, I am facing a narrow storefront wedged between a print shop and a laundromat. A wooden sign above the door reads, "Little Laurel Bakery, bread baked hourly." The windows glow amber, and in the glass I see my own reflection. A thin man in a second-hand windbreaker, staring as if his life depends on what lies inside. The bell above the door rings with a bright, round tone. Warm air rushes over me, swirling flour, cinnamon, and something crisp and nutty. Shelves along the left wall rise to the ceiling, crowded with round loaves whose crusts crack under their own weight. On the right, a glass case shows off neat ranks of croissants shining like lacquered wood, apple turnovers dusted with powdered sugar, and lemon tarts whose filling catches the light like a jewel. Behind the counter, a woman in a blue apron wipes her hands on a towel and offers a smile that softens the lines at the corners of her eyes. I want to answer, but my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. I point to a small brown loaf no bigger than my fist, still steaming in its tray. The tag says, "Country bread, $2.50. She slides it into a paper bag, then adds a foil-wrapped square of butter. "First loaf of the day comes with a little gift," she says. I reach for the money Sergeant Marlowe pressed into my hand hours ago, count 3 coins, and place them on the counter. My fingers tremble but manage not to drop anything. She pushes 2 quarters back toward me, closes my hand around them, and wishes me luck in a voice as soft as fresh dough. Outside, the sunlight is harsher after the bakery's golden glow. I cross to a low stone bench beside a young maple. The paper bag radiates warmth through my knees, and I breathe in steam that smells like all the breakfasts I ever wanted and never had. When I tear the loaf apart, the crust gives a gentle snap, and a thin ribbon of steam curls upward, carrying memories I do not own. Kitchen tables, wooden boards, the scrape of a butter knife against porcelain. I peel the gold foil, revealing butter so pale it is almost white, and spread a thin layer onto the bread with my fingertip. It melts instantly, leaving the surface glossy. I take the first bite. Salt, grain, and warmth flood my mouth, and for a long moment I do nothing but let the taste settle, let it prove to every cell in my body that life can still be sweet. In prison, bread was a slab cooked yesterday and served today, always dry, always cold, always the exact same weight. Butter was rumor, a taste described by men who had once known better days. Now both sit patiently on my tongue, as real as the sun on my face. While I eat, the city completes its transition from dawn hush to full-throated morning. A courier on a neon green bicycle weaves between taxis. A pair of children race each other to a school bus, and somewhere up the street a vendor shakes almonds in hot sugar until the smell cuts through exhaust and damp air. Every sound is crisp, every color oversaturated, as though someone has turned up the brightness on the world. I chew more slowly than I have ever chewed anything, counting the crunches, feeling the texture change from crust to crumb, letting the butter leave a slick sheen on my lips. A sparrow flutters close, eyeing the loaf with quick jerks of its head, and I break off a crumb and place it gently on the bench. The bird snatches it, tilts its head as if in thanks, then flits away. Another small creature benefiting from my impossible morning. Only when the loaf is half gone do I remember the flyer from the night shift warehouse job in my pocket. The Civic Center doors will open soon. I fold the bag twice, tucking the final piece of bread beside the flyer and the fading photograph of my sister and me. Those 3 objects, the bread, the picture, and a promise of work, feel like a miniature Survival kit. I rise and brush crumbs from my trousers, suddenly aware that butter has softened in the lines of my palm. I lick it away, embarrassed but unwilling to waste any part of this treasure. As I walk back toward the fair, I pass the bakery's side window and glimpse racks holding new loaves ready for the next hour. The woman in the blue apron stretches to sprinkle seeds across shiny rising dough. She does not see me, but I lift the paper bag in a small salute. In her shop, I bought more than bread. I bought proof that kindness still circulates in the world, that money can trade not only for calories, but also for human warmth. The plaza in front of the Civic Center is now crowded with job seekers. Some tap on phones, some sip coffee from cardboard cups, some rehearse elevator pitches under their breath. My windbreaker is too thin for the season, yet inside I feel a glow that has nothing to do with weather. Butter still coats the back of my tongue. Strength hums in my arms and legs. I stand a little taller. When the security guard begins admitting people two at a time, I join the line without hesitation. A woman ahead of me notices the paper bag, smiles politely, and says she hopes the fair treats us well. I nod, and for a fragment of a second the space between us is not empty, but shared. Inside, the lobby lights flare against polished marble, and the hum of conversation rises like a low organ note. I pause just beyond the door, steady myself, and press a hand to my jacket pocket. The bread is there, still warm. The photograph is there, still fragile. And the job flyer is there, still waiting. These are not riches, but they are enough. I step forward, heart steady, ready to move among the booths and banners, ready to chase the smallest opening. Each bite of bread I swallowed this morning whispers a promise. That nourishment can return, that life outside a cell can seep slowly into every corner of me, as butter seeps into warm crumb. With that promise lodged deep in my chest, I walk into the crowd and begin to look for my place. Chapter 5. Invisible among the crowds. I step through the glass doors of the Civic Center, and an immediate wave of sound greets me. Voices bounce off high ceilings, merge into one restless hum, and tumble over the polished floor like fast water over stones. Bright banners hang from steel beams, blue for technology, green for healthcare, yellow for transportation. And underneath each banner, long tables form narrow aisles where recruiters hand out brochures and shake hands at lightning speed. Fresh suits glide between the rows with tablets in hand. Polished shoes click, heels snap, and the hard rhythm makes my ribs vibrate. I keep my shoulders tight and hold my folded flyer against my chest as if it were a passport, though I know it is only a single sheet of paper. I join the flow of people and move past a table marked Harbor Freight Logistics. Two men in identical shirts sit behind laptops that glow with endless columns of numbers. One of them offers a quick smile that never reaches his eyes and nudges a laminated card toward me. It shows a square black code and the words, "Apply online." I try to explain that I do not own a phone, but before I finish my sentence, his gaze slides over my shoulder to someone else already presenting a resume. The conversation ends on its own, quietly, as if I had never spoken. The next aisle smells of fresh toner and cold coffee. A woman with silver glasses and red lipstick hands out business cards for a training program in cloud computing. She holds one toward me, yet just as I reach for it, she leans sideways to answer a question from a taller man in a dark tie. The card drops back to her stack. I watch it land, feeling a small sting of embarrassment, then keep walking so slowly that two people behind me sidestep with irritated sighs. I murmur an apology neither of them hears. In the center of the hall stands a pillar clad in mirror-bright metal. I pause for a moment and meet my own reflection. The windbreaker looks dull under fluorescent light. My jeans sag at the knees, and coarse stubble covers a face that seems older than it should be. Behind that faint image, the crowd whirls in crisp focus, dressed in fresh colors that sparkle like new coins. I reach out and touch the metal. My fingertip leaves a blurry patch that fades almost at once, as if even my print cannot decide to stay. A cough beside me breaks the spell. I turn and see an older woman with long gray braids and a name badge that reads Ms. Davies, Workforce Coach. She asks whether I have found anything promising. Her voice is patient, pleasant, as if there were no hurry in the world. I answer that I know how to lift heavy boxes and how to keep working long after most men grow tired. She nods thoughtfully, then circles two booths on my flyer with a red pen. One for the city sanitation department, the other for a union-run warehouse that still accepts in-person applications. Before I can thank her, she presses a granola bar into my hand. "Crowds drain energy," she says, and her small kindness lights something calm inside me. I follow her directions and reach a booth marked Union Warehouse Hiring Today. A broad-shouldered man in plaid meets my eye and offers his hand without hesitation. His grip is sure and warm. He asks if I have ever worked a loading dock, and I admit that I have not, though I can learn quickly. He studies my face for a single, long beat, then tears a green card from a pad and writes an address with tomorrow's date and a start time of 10 at night. "Bring steel-toe boots," he tells me. I close my fingers around the card and feel its weight as if it were a key. When I step back outside, midday sun flares off passing cars and dazzles my eyes. A saxophone wails a playful tune at the corner. Exhaust mingles with the smell of caramelized sugar from a nut cart, and somewhere a delivery truck beeps as it reverses. The sidewalk is a river of motion, parents steering strollers, cyclists weaving between taxis, students laughing into phones, and for a moment I feel as transparent as glass. People slip around me the way water parts around a stone, and I wonder if any of them notice the man standing in the middle of the stream. Yet I hold the green card in my pocket and the granola bar in my hand, and they keep me anchored. I am not part of this rhythm yet, but I am no longer floating without direction. I walk with the flow for several blocks, letting the city's pulse set my pace. My reflection appears in passing windows, still thin, still tired, but now framed by bright sky and tall buildings instead of gray walls. Each time I see that faint outline, I remind myself that outlines can thicken, that color can return, that even the smallest handshake can make an invisible man feel solid. Tomorrow night I will show up at the loading dock with sore feet and borrowed boots, ready to learn whatever muscles and resolve can learn. Until then, I will keep walking, keep breathing, and keep believing that if I stay in motion long enough, someone will look straight at me and see more than empty space. Chapter 6. Nightfall in Riverside Park. Night settles over the city as I leave the bright streets and turn toward Riverside Park, following the slow ribbon of the river until neon glare gives way to a calmer, older darkness. The air cools quickly. I see my breath rise before me in thin, uneven streams, and every exhale seems to carry some small part of the day's noise away. A line of lamps borders the main walkway, but their glow is muted behind frosted glass, and half the bulbs are dead. So each pool of light is followed by a stretch of shadow that makes the path feel longer than it is. The river murmurs beside me, brushing its black surface against stone embankments in a steady hush that might be mistaken for silence if I were not listening closely. High above, skyscraper windows switch off one by one until the skyline becomes a jagged silhouette. And for the first time since leaving prison, I glimpse a trio of stars between the clouds, dull sparks over a place that rarely gives the sky a chance to speak. I choose a bench facing the water, close enough that I can hear occasional slaps of wind-driven ripples against metal boat rings. The bench is wooden, its paint flaked and peeling in long scars. Still, it is wider than my bunk, and the freedom to sit without permission wraps itself around me like a second jacket. I rest my small paper bag, now holding the last shard of morning bread, by my hip and stretch my legs until my heels scrape the gravel. All day I have moved among people without once feeling included. Here, under streaks of sodium orange light, I feel invisible in a softer way, as if the park accepts my presence but does not mind who I was or why I came. I lean back and close my eyes, breathing through my nose so the scent of river water, damp leaves, and distant fried food can settle into a single, earthy note. A shuffle of footsteps approaches, uneven but unhurried, followed by the dull thud of another body lowering onto the far end of the bench. I open my eyes and find an older man bundled in 3 coats, their collars layered like mismatched petals around a gray, weather-burned face. A knit cap hides most of his hair. His beard, thick and silver, catches the streetlight so each wiry strand glows. He nods once, not expecting conversation, then digs through a canvas grocery bag at his feet and produces a heel of rye bread wrapped in newspaper. The paper is so thin with grease it seems translucent, yet he unfolds it with the care of someone handling a rare map. Breaking the slice in half, he extends one piece toward me. The gesture is practiced, casual, as if he has been sharing food with strangers his entire life. My fingers hesitate before accepting, pride and gratitude wrestling in a single motion. Then, close around the rough crust, surprising me with a heat that lingers as though the bread has stored daylight in its core. "First night out?" he asks, voice rasping but steady. The question hangs between us like a low branch. I answer with a nod, lacking words both in number and strength. He nods again, understanding more than the gesture reveals, and glances across the river where the far shore's luxury condos rise in mirrored tiers. Their windows shimmer on the water, doubling each spark of light, making the city look richer than it ever feels from the ground. "Gets cold fast," he says, shifting his shoulders beneath the outermost coat. "Colder than steel bars. Some nights." I take a cautious bite of rye, dry, slightly sour, but honest, and chew while my eyes trace the slow pulse of fairy lights upstream. When I swallow, the bread leaves a warmth that surprises me by traveling deeper than my stomach, anchoring itself somewhere near the hollow that fear carved months ago. A siren wails in the distance, morphing into a thin cry that rides the wind above treetops. The old man tilts his head until the sound fades, then speaks again. "Name's Jonas. Been on these benches 3 winters now." He waits, and I realize he is offering me room not only to sit, but to speak. "Ethan," I reply, tasting my name in the night air, finding it less foreign than expected. Jonas repeats it once, almost to himself, then shifts his weight so he faces me fully. You'll get used to the noise, the cold, the feeling that every passerby sees right through. You, he says. Maybe not tonight, maybe not next week, but you will. I turn the remaining half of Jonas's bread between my hands, its crust sanding my fingertips. How? The word slips out, brief and fragile. Jonas shrugs and points at the river. Keep moving, same way that water keeps flowing even when the wind cuts it to ribbons. Find work if you can. Share what you have when you can't. And remember that being invisible cuts both ways. If they don't see you, they can't judge you. But it also means you've got to see yourself. He taps his chest once, producing a muffled thump beneath. The coats. The advice sounds too simple, yet every syllable lands with the weight of lived truth, and I tuck it alongside the green job card in my memory. Clouds drift above us like slow ships. When they part, a fingernail moon gleams faintly, painting silver edges on the leafless branches and turning the river into a sheet of broken glass. Wind rises from the water, slips through seams in my jacket, and chills the sweat still clinging to my spine. I hug my arms around myself, but Jonas quietly unzips one coat and spreads half of it over my shoulders without meeting my eyes. The fabric smells of smoke and rain, but its warmth is immediate. I mutter a quiet thanks that feels too small, and he dismisses it with a grunt. We sit that way for a long while. Two shapes in borrowed light, speaking only in sniffles and shivers, and I realize this silent companionship eases the sting of the day far more than the bright fare or the polished smiles inside it. Around midnight, a patrol car creeps along the park road, headlights off, engine low, checking for trouble. Jonas lies down, pulling his coats tight, and tells me to do the same. I stretch out on the bench, knees bent, head resting against cold wood. The sky over the city is never fully dark, but the faint glow allows me to see a scatter of stars and, between them, the thin line of an airplane sliding westward. Its blinking lights a reminder that somewhere people are crossing oceans while I try to cross a single night. I close my eyes and let the bench's hard slats press into shoulders and hips until they feel almost familiar. Wind combs the riverbank grass. The lamp above us buzzes. A late train rumbles across a distant bridge. Each sound layers itself into a rough lullaby, and eventually my exhausted body surrenders to sleep. I dream of a room without walls, only doors. Hundreds of doors rocking gently like boats on a black sea. One swings open and spills white light that smells of fresh bread. Another opens onto the face of my sister, frozen at the age she was the day I left home. I reach for her, but the door drifts away, and when I try to stand, my feet are rooted to the floorless dark. I jolt awake just before dawn, heart pounding, throat dry. Jonas is already up, leaning over the embankment to splash river water on his cheeks. The coats are back on his shoulders. He pats mine, wordless, then hoists the grocery bag and nods toward the footpath. I thank him again, this time louder, and he answers with a small wave before disappearing into the half-light that stains the eastern sky. My back aches from the bench. My fingers feel stiff, yet there is something electric in the air that calls me upright. The city is beginning its slow stir. A garbage truck groans on the avenue, gulls circle above the river, and steam curls from a rooftop vent like a white flag signaling the start of another struggle. I reach into my jacket and find the last fragment of bread from Little Laurel Bakery, now hard at the edges but still carrying a faint scent of butter. I break it in half, eat one piece in 2 deliberate bites, and toss the other into the water where it drifts away, turning lazy circles in the current. Watching it float, I whisper a promise that tomorrow night I will have money enough to buy a full loaf for Jonas and myself. The promise is thin but real, and as it leaves my lips, I find I believe it. With the river behind me and the rising sun casting long spears of light through bare branches, I start walking toward the address printed on the green card. My breath smokes out ahead of me like a locomotive's first puff, and I step into it, wrapped in the memory of Jonas's shared coat, the rhythm of the water, and the fragile certainty that invisibility is not the same as erasure. Chapter 7. Morning's Stark Awakening. I wake before sunrise, stiff and cold, on the same splintered bench that carried me through the night. My spine protests the angle of each wooden slat, and a metallic taste lingers on my tongue, half hunger, half river air. Thin mist hovers above the water like a silent curtain. When I sit up, droplets settle on my eyelashes and turn the world into a soft blur until I blink them away. The eastern sky is only a charcoal smear, but the city is already stretching. Somewhere behind me, a garbage truck hisses as its compactor crushes yesterday's refuse. And across the park, a jogger pads past in neon shoes, breath puffing white in the pre-dawn chill. I rub my arms to coax warmth back into them and feel the wrinkled green job card in my pocket, the promise of night shift work that kept me anchored through shivering hours. The river, black under the thinning fog, carries scraps of moonlight down its slow current. I watch a bread crust, last night's offering to the water, spin and bob until it drifts out of sight, and the sight nudges me toward my own hunger. Jonas has vanished, leaving only faint footprints in the dewy grass. I wonder whether he headed toward the Mission on 6th Street, or toward one of the subway grates that vent warm steam all winter. The thought of him walking alone sharpens my resolve to repay his kindness. I rise, stretch until my back pops, and make my way toward the avenue where I remember seeing a bakery sign the night before. City noises stack themselves layer by layer as I leave the quiet of Riverside Park. First come the hollow taps of early footsteps, nurses changing shifts, baristas opening cafes. Then the deeper roar of buses, and finally the bright scatter of car horns, each shrill note ricocheting off glass facades. Streetlights click off just as the first pale stripe of dawn slips between two office towers, turning their steel ribs gold for a single breath before broader daylight floods in. I step over a rim of gutter water that reflects the blooming sky in oily swirls and wonder whether the city always looked this alive, or whether I simply never noticed when I was young. Little Laurel Bakery stands on the corner like a lantern, windows glowing against the gray morning. Inside, trays of rolls clatter onto cooling racks, and the woman in the blue apron is already sweeping flour from the counter. She recognizes me, her smile creasing at the edges. "Rough night?" she asks, and I nod, unable to assemble a clever reply. My coins clink on the glass as I point to a day-old bag marked half price, 2 crusty rolls and a small pat of butter. She slips an extra roll into the sack, then pushes it toward me along with a cup of weak, welcome coffee that smells of burnt sugar and earth. I thank her, leave more coins than she asks, and step back into the widening light. Across the street, a city newsstand is just unfolding its metal arms. The vendor tears plastic bands off fresh bundles and slaps each paper onto the shelf with practiced rhythm. On impulse I cross, buy the cheapest edition, and tuck it under my arm with the bread. The headline screams about a market crash in numbers too large to grasp. But what freezes me is the date in bold print. November 5th, 2 decades after the day of my arrest, and exactly 17 years after the appeal that should have set me free. Seeing the numbers in ink jolts me harder than cold water. They confirm in public record the private tally I keep on my skin, in the brittle ghosts of birthdays and holidays I missed. I exhale slowly, steadying the tremor in my hands, and remind myself that the next line beneath the masthead declares, Tuesday. A workday, a chance to move forward. I walk until I find a low stone wall warmed by sunlight creeping over a hardware store roof. There I break a roll, spread the butter with my thumb, and eat as slowly as I can. Steam curls from the soft crumb, and each bite melts into a comforting paste that chases away the metallic taste of the night. Between bites, I read the front page, testing how many new names, acronyms, and technologies I can absorb before my eyes cross. Cryptocurrency, climate summit, autonomous delivery drones. Each term feels like a window into some room I have yet to enter, but I underline them with the stub of my prison library pencil, determined to learn their meanings the way I once memorized every crack in my cell. When the rolls are gone and only crumbs remain in the paper bag, I fold the newspaper into a tidy square, slip it behind the job card, and stand. Morning traffic now surges in full force. Taxis weave around rideshare drivers who don't yet exist in my memory. Cyclists thread between lanes with backpacks bulging like beetles, and office workers in charcoal coats march toward glass towers that glitter under the fresh sun. I join the current at the edge, matching my stride to its tempo, invisible but undeniably present. Every few blocks I catch my reflection in a dark window. The man staring back still looks thin and weathered, yet the set of his shoulders is different from yesterday's shadow. He carries a day's nourishment, a pocket full of new words to explore, and the address of a warehouse that will, by nightfall, pay him for honest sweat. A city clock mounted above the bank shows 7:48. I calculate the hours until a thrift shop opens on Madison where I might find second-hand boots tough enough for loading docks, then count backward to the next bus that heads in that direction. The arithmetic steadies me. It reminds me that while I lost 19 years, I have not lost the ability to plan, to add small numbers toward a larger sum. I step onto a bus with exact change, nod at the driver's bored greeting, and settle by the window where sunlight splashes across the aisle. As the city scrolls past outside, I press a hand to my jacket pocket, feel the newspaper's folded edge, and let the crinkling paper assure me that I am awake, alert, and unmistakably alive. Chapter 8. A Sign of Opportunity. I leave the bus on Madison Street just as the thrift shop's metal shutter rattles upward. A young clerk props the door open with a cinder block, shivering in a sweatshirt that advertises a band I have never heard of. Inside, rows of second-hand jackets lean against one another like weary travelers. I head straight for the footwear, guided by the chalkboard hanging above the aisle. Work boots, $8 pair. Most of the boots are scuffed or missing laces, yet after 10 patient minutes, I uncover a pair that still hold their shape. The steel caps. Inside the toes unbent and shining faintly when I tilt them toward the light. The leather smells of machine oil and pine cleaner. I count my remaining coins twice before handing them over. and the clerk drops the boots into a reused grocery bag with a gruff kindness that makes me think of Jonas's silent gestures the night before. Outside, sunlight has settled into full strength, drying the last traces of dew on parked cars. I lace the boots tightly and test their weight by walking a short rectangle on the sidewalk. They are heavy enough to remind me of iron shackles. Yet each step is fully my own, and that difference beats inside my chest like a secret drum. I turn north, following the directions Ms. Davies circled on my flyer, and let the flow of pedestrians pull me forward until the skyscrapers give way to squat brick buildings painted in faded reds and browns. Freight tracks run parallel to the street here, and every 100 yards a spur line dives between warehouses whose windows are fogged with years of dust. The air tastes of diesel and warm asphalt, and in the distance a mechanical horn blares, lonely and metallic, as a cargo engine crawls across an overpass. Just before noon, I reach Harbor Way, a cul-de-sac bordered by loading bays the height of my shoulders. A chain-link fence guards the entrance, but the gate stands open and a rusted yellow sign swings back and forth in the breeze. Hiring. Inquire with foreman. Seeing those words in thick black paint makes my stomach twist with something that feels like fear dressed up as hope. I wipe my palms on my pant legs, step through the gate, and follow a painted line on the cracked concrete until it ends at a glass door framed in dented aluminum. Behind the door, a reception desk sits empty, except for a blinking phone and a wire basket of visitor badges. I tap the bell once. The chime rings like a spoon against a jar, and almost at once a man appears from a side corridor, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that used to be white. He is broad-shouldered, half a head, taller than me, with skin the color of mahogany and a neatly trimmed beard already flecked with gray. A hard hat dangles from one hand, and the name Patel is stenciled across the front in fading letters. "Looking for work?" he asks, eyes quick but not unkind. I straighten, fighting the urge to hide my thrift store boots behind me, and nod. He gestures toward a pair of metal chairs, and we sit across a low table littered with safety brochures. The conversation is simple. No resume, no background check yet, only 3 questions. Do you have steel-toe boots? Can you lift 50 pounds repeatedly? Can you start tonight? After each question, I answer yes, and each yes feels like a window opening. Mr. Patel reaches into a folder, pulls out a green index card, and writes in block letters, "Night shift, 10. Car report to side door number 3. He slides the card across the table with a ballpoint pen, waits while I sign my name at the bottom, and then shakes my hand so firmly that the bones in my fingers click. "Show up on time," he says. "Work hard. Listen more than you speak. We'll take it one night at a time." I thank him, and the words feel small next to what he has given me, yet he only nods and returns to his corridor, already lost to the clang of machinery. I step back into the sunlight clutching the card and realize my legs are trembling. Not from fear this time, but from a rush of adrenaline brighter than any emotion I have felt since leaving prison. The cul-de-sac seems to glow, even the oil stains on the pavement shimmer like patches of spilled gold. A refrigerated truck rumbles past, brakes squealing as it reverses toward a raised dock, and I catch a glimpse of my reflection in its chrome bumper. Same gaunt face, same windbreaker, yet my shoulders are squared, my stance wider, as if the green card in my hand has added invisible weight to my silhouette. The rest of the afternoon unfolds like a lesson in ordinary life. I locate a public library 2 blocks away, where I wash my face in the restroom sink and study a wall map until I can picture the shortest bus route back that evening. Beneath tall windows, I sit at a wooden table and open the newspaper I folded earlier, sounding out every unfamiliar headline in a whisper to improve my tongue's agility. Time slides by quietly, measured only by the soft thud of books on the return cart and the occasional cough of a reader lost in thought. At 4 o'clock, my stomach announces itself, so I eat the last thrift shop granola bar that Ms. Davies pressed into my palm at the fair, washing it down with lukewarm water from the fountain. The taste of oats and raisins is modest, yet each bite feeds not only hunger, but certainty. Tonight I will earn more, and tomorrow I can share something fresher with Jonas if our paths cross again. When the library closes at 6, I wander back toward Riverside Park, carrying my new boots instead of wearing them to preserve the soles. The river at dusk is a band of tarnished silver, and the bench where Jonas and I slept sits empty, its paint almost black in the fading light. I rest there for a moment, watching the sky deepen from rose to violet, rehearsing the route back to Harbor Way. In my mind, I see the yellow sign swaying in the breeze and Mr. Patel's steady gaze, and I imagine lifting the first box, feeling the strain in my shoulders, the grounded certainty of honest fatigue. That image plants a seed of calm inside me. It quiets the fear that tonight might vanish like a dream and leaves in its place the steady rhythm of possibility. At 9 o'clock, I board the bus that stops closest to the warehouse, paying my fare with coins that now clink together more softly in my pocket. Neon lights blur past the window. Bar signs, 24-hour pharmacies, a motel flashing vacancy, and with each block, I feel the city's pulse slow, as if nighttime layers of silence are settling over the streets like fresh snow. I tighten the laces of my boots, tuck the green card into the cuff of my sleeve, and close my eyes for one final deep breath. The bus sighs to a halt, its door folding open with a hiss. I step onto the pavement where a single street lamp flickers above the gate, illuminating the yellow sign whose black letters still read hiring. But tonight the word seems to point not just to an open position, but to a narrow door in the wall of my life. A door someone has finally cracked wide enough for me to slip through. 10 minutes later, I stand at side door number 3, heart hammering in my ears, and knock twice as instructed. The metal groans inward, releasing a wash of cool, diesel-scented air. A younger man in a reflective vest lifts a clipboard and calls my name from a list, then gestures me inside. As the door shuts behind me, sealing out the night, I look down at my hands. They are empty of chains, yet full of purpose. In a few heartbeats, the foreman will assign me to a pallet jack or a sorting belt. In a few hours, sweat will leave dark maps under the arms of my shirt. In a few days, if I last, my first wage envelope will carry my name spelled correctly in fresh ink. For now, though, it is enough to stand beneath the high warehouse roof, smell the sawdust and engine grease, and feel the tremble in my chest, transform from raw fear into something steadier, something that sounds like the first low note of a song I have waited 2 decades to sing. Chapter 9. Labor and Belonging. The warehouse feels twice as large from the inside as it looked in the streetlight, and its high rafters swallow the click of my new boots, so the only sound that seems to reach the ceiling is the constant hum of conveyor belts. Mr. Patel waves me over to a metal cart stacked with folded orange vests and hands me one along with a gray cap stamped with the company logo, then introduces me to Miguel, a compact man with a grin that flashes even in dim light. Miguel shows me how to scan a pallet label, tug the pallet jack's handle to release the brake, and steer the wooden platform between yellow floor lines that mark safe lanes. The jack is heavier than it looks, and the first time I pull, the wheels refuse to budge until Miguel laughs, plants his boot beside mine, and tells me to lean from the hips like I am pushing a stalled car. The pallet rolls forward, and a cheer rises from 3 workers loading a truck bay nearby as though I have passed a quiet initiation test. For the next 2 hours, my world narrows to a rhythm of lift, roll, stack, repeat. Cardboard boxes scrape my forearms, plastic wrap clings to my elbows, and my breath grows ragged inside the paper mask they issued at the door. Yet each drop of sweat that slides down my back feels like proof that my body has not forgotten honest work. I fall in step with the others, a moving line of shoulders swaying to an invisible song that the old radio in the break room cannot quite capture. When the foreman shouts break time at midnight, we file toward a corner lit by a single fluorescent tube and crowd around two coffee urns that sputter like steam engines. Someone presses a foam cup into my hand, fills it with liquid the color of engine oil, and offers a plastic packet of sugar. I nod thanks, stir twice, and sip until the bitterness spreads across my tongue and pushes the metallic taste of fear farther away than it has been in years. Miguel drops onto the bench beside me, pulls a folded photo from his wallet. Two children, covered in frosting beside a cake shaped like a dinosaur, and tells me in a mix of quick English and rolling Spanish that his son turned 5 last week. I trace the outline of the dinosaur with my eyes, surprised by how easily I can smile at a stranger's joy, then reach into my own pocket for the creased snapshot of young Ethan and Hannah beneath the maple tree. I hold it flat on my palm. Corners, gone soft from years of folding, and Miguel studies the image with a quiet respect that does not ask unnecessary questions. He taps a finger on my sister's bright grin, says familia, and we sit for a moment in a silence that feels shared rather than awkward, until the whistle blows and work calls us back to the aisles. The second half of the shift blurs into long rows of shrink-wrapped freight. My muscles ache, but there is an undercurrent of satisfaction in the steady burn. Around 3 a.m., a forklift beeps in tight reverse near my ankle, and I pivot instinctively, pressing my back to the wall the way Jonas taught me to melt out of sight on a busy sidewalk. The driver, a tall woman with a purple bandana, throws up an apologetic hand signal and mouths sorry over the engine roar. I return the gesture and we both continue. And in the exchange, I realize I have become part of the warehouse's choreography, trusting and being trusted even by those who do not yet know my name. At 4:30, the belt stops, the floor sweepers roll out, and the foreman gathers the night crew beneath the loading dock clock, where a dim bulb announces the end of shift. He hands out small envelopes thick with time cards and folded bills. When mine reaches my fingers, its weight feels unreal. I slip it into the inside pocket of my windbreaker, afraid it might disintegrate under the bright neon if I look too soon. Miguel bumps my shoulder, tells me in Spanish-tinged English that the diner across the tracks gives half-price breakfast to warehouse crew before sunrise, and several others chime in about bacon special or cinnamon rolls the size of truck tires. I hesitate, the instinct of isolation flickering up, yet the warmth of invitation crowds it out, and I find myself following the group through the big roll-up door into pre-dawn chill. The sky is just beginning to pale beyond the rail yard. A faint promise of pink washing over rows of freight cars. As we walk, boots crunching gravel, Miguel asks what music I like, and I search for a modern reference but land on an old soul singer whose vinyl spun in my mother's kitchen. He laughs, says his father listens to that on Sundays, and offers me one earbud from the phone in his pocket. Tinny horns and velvet vocals leak into the dawn air, merging with the clatter of wheels somewhere in the dark. We round the corner, and neon letters flick on above the diner door, spelling Sunrise Grill, precisely timed to greet us. I realize I am grinning, not because life has suddenly become easy, but because I am no longer drifting alone from bench to bench. I am walking beside people who expect to see me tomorrow night. Inside the diner, a waitress in curlers lifts her coffee pot like a badge of office and calls everyone darling. We squeeze into two booths, orange vinyl creaking beneath damp jackets, and order plates stacked higher than my appetite. Yet I eat until butter shines on my chin while laughter bounces across the formica. When the check arrives, Miguel flicks a corner of his envelope and nods toward mine. We both peel bills from crisp stacks and slide them under a mug like we have done it together for years. Outside, the sky is fully awake, streaked gold above. Warehouse roofs and the city's morning traffic has begun to rumble. The group disperses in pairs toward bus stops and bicycle racks, and I head toward Riverside Park, boots scuffing pavement in time with a new internal metronome. At the edge of the park, I stop by the bench where Jonas and I met, finding it empty, but layered with fallen leaves. I sit, open my pay envelope, and count each bill twice, the numbers glowing in early light. It is not a fortune, yet the green ink feels softer than any banknote I ever held, infused with the weight of every box lifted and every bead of sweat shed through the small hours. I tuck half the cash into my sock for safekeeping, then slip the remainder into the bakery bag I will carry when the shop opens, planning 2 loaves this time. One for Jonas if fate brings him back, one for me to share with the night shift crew during our next break. As I rise, a city sparrow hops onto the backrest, eyeing me with bold curiosity, and I laugh out loud at the absurd joy of being noticed by anything at all. The sun clears the skyline, casting long stripes of light across the river, and I walk toward the smell of fresh bread carried on a faint breeze. My shoulders ache, my hands are raw, but inside that discomfort blooms a warmth deeper than the coffee or the coming dawn. For 19 years I belonged to nothing but a prison number. Today I belong to the thrum of forklift engines, the chant of pallet scanners, the shared joke over burnt diner coffee. Each step toward the bakery feels surer than the last, and by the time I see the wooden sign that reads Little Laurel, the word belonging is no longer an idea I study from a distance. It is the simple, steady rhythm of my own heart, moving in time with the work and the people who have let me stand among them. Chapter 10. A Seed of Hope. I leave Little Laurel Bakery with 2 warm loaves tucked beneath my arm and a paper sack of day-old rolls that the woman in the blue apron insists on adding for your friends on the night shift. The sky above the Phi River has turned a clear, determined blue, the sort of blue that makes even the warehouse roofs look polished. A faint ache throbs in my shoulders, but it feels more like a reminder than a complaint, proof that I spent the dark hours doing real work and earned the bills folded deep in my sock. At the corner of Riverside and 8th, I spot a pay-as-you-go phone kiosk, its bright decals promising no contract, no credit check. I hesitate, hearing the phantom rattle of prison keys in my head, but the memory of Miguel's shared earbud and Ms. Davies's red ink circles nudges me forward. 15. Minutes later, I emerge with a small plastic handset, $10 of prepaid talk time, and a handwritten receipt that smells faintly of toner. The phone rests in my palm like an alien bird, light and fragile. Yet when I thumb the power button and see the blank screen flicker alive, a current of possibility hums through my fingertips. An hour passes while I sit on a riverside bench, scrolling through the limited settings, practicing the feel of the buttons, and working up the nerve to dial the only number burned into my memory. Hannah's childhood house phone has surely changed, but the sequence of digits sits inside me like a prayer. I breathe deep, press call, and listen to a mechanical pulse travel the line. On the 4th ring, a recorded voice announces that the number is no longer in service, and the bench seems to tilt beneath me. I stare at the river until the disappointment settles, then remind myself that 17 years is plenty of time for addresses and area codes to shift like river sand. I tuck the phone away, seed planted, not yet sprouted, and set a new goal. Tomorrow I will visit the public records office, trace property listings, chase any lead until Hannah's name surfaces. By noon, the last of the coffee in my veins runs thin, so I head toward the community shelter on Monroe, hoping to find Jonas among the lunchtime crowd. The shelter's brick facade wears a mural of improbable sunflowers, and the air outside smells of cabbage soup and dish soap. Inside, long tables fill with people whose faces show the night in different shades, some red-eyed from sleeplessness, some gray with quiet resignation, some bright with stories they cannot wait to tell. I weave through the line with my bakery, bag raised like a torch until a familiar gray beard catches my eye. Jonas sits near the end of the table, shoulders hunched, coaxing crumbs from a slice of plain white bread. The coat he shared now hangs loose on his frame, and a tremor runs through his left hand each time he lifts the bread to his mouth. I slide the paper sack onto the table and nudge it toward him. "Trade," I say. He peers inside, and the scent of crust and butter reaches him before the sight does. A slow smile lifts the sadness from his eyes. No questions, no dramatic thanks, just a nod and a quiet, "much obliged." We break the fresh loaf between us, and while we eat I tell him about the pallet jack, the midnight coffee, the envelope heavy with first wages. He listens, tearing his portion into neat squares, and when I finish he taps one finger on the tabletop. "Keep stacking. Your days like boxes," he says. "Sooner or later you'll build a wall high enough that yesterday can't climb over." The phrase lodges in my chest. I promise him a cinnamon roll from the diner after my next shift, and he answers with a soft laugh that carries more warmth than the shelter's steam vents. The afternoon drifts past in small, deliberate tasks, registering at the public library for computer access, scanning classified ads for furnished rooms, scribbling each hopeful address in the margin of my newspaper. The first two landlords shrug at my lack of references. The third, a retired nurse named Mrs. Nguyen, leads me up a narrow staircase to a room hardly larger than my prison cell, yet bright with south-facing windows. The rent absorbs nearly half my envelope, but when I step inside and the floorboards creak under my boots, the sound feels like a welcome rather than a warning. She hands me a set of brass keys, still warm from her pocket. I place the bakery bag on the windowsill, open the sash, and let cool air skate across peeling paint. My own air in my own space, no matter how temporary. A pale moon hangs above the rooftops by the time I lace up my boots for the second night shift. The ride to Harbor Way feels shorter. The driver nods as if he already recognizes me, and the warehouse gate swings open before I reach the call button. Miguel greets me with a mock salute. Purple bandana driver throws me a thumbs up, and Mr. Patel's clipboard checkmark lands beside my name without hesitation. Tonight the boxes seem lighter, the conveyor hum friendlier, the coffee marginally less burnt. An hour before dawn, Miguel produces a portable radio and tunes in an old soul station. Horns burst through the warehouse like sunrise trumpets, and I find myself working in time with the backbeat, stacking cartons to a rhythm born decades before my arrest, yet perfectly fitted to my new life. When the shift ends and envelopes pass from foreman to crew, Mr. Patel pauses at me, eyes crinkling above his beard. "Good work, Sinclair," he says. "Keep showing up." 2 words, showing up, echo in my head as I cross the parking lot. They join Jonas's metaphor of boxes and Ms. Davies's quiet faith, weaving themselves into a simple blueprint. Arrive, endure, repeat. The sky blushes pink over freight cars, and a freight horn in the distance sounds less like loneliness, more like a starting whistle. On the bus ride back to my room, I pull out the small phone and scroll to the blank contacts list. I type Miguel, warehouse, then Ms. Davies, coach with the shelter's number she wrote on my flyer, and at last Jonas, bench by river even though I have no digits to attach. Only a promise to look for him each morning. I'm free. The act of naming them feels like planting seedlings in fresh soil. I slip the phone into my pocket, close my eyes, and allow the bus's hum to become the lullaby I missed for 2 decades. Keys jingle in the lock, and the door of my rented room swings inward to greet the first true dawn of my own making. I drop, my boots by the wall, line the window ledge with the last crumbs of bakery crust for the sparrows, and sink onto the mattress with the envelope clutched in both hands. The bills inside are still warm from my body heat, stamped with serial numbers that certify they are real, earned, and legitimately mine. Outside, a commuter train rattles past, its windows flashing silver. Each flicker feels like a syllable in the new language of possibility. I lie back, letting fatigue pull me toward sleep. Yet a quiet excitement pushes against my ribs the way a seed pushes against soil. Tomorrow will bring another stack of boxes, another envelope, another chance to trace Hannah's path through the shifting grid of this city. Tomorrow might also bring setbacks, a jammed wrist, a missed bus, a landlord's sudden change of mind. But tonight, this small, unremarkable night at the edge of a noisy metropolis, holds enough proof that beginnings can arrive softly, disguised as second-hand boots, shared bread, and a vibrating phone waiting for its first returned call. Inni, the faint light spilling between curtains, dust motes drift like tiny lanterns. I watch them float, feel the ache in my arms ease, and let the rhythm of the city settle into my breath. The seed is planted now. Beneath the silence of a rented ceiling, it will root itself in the dark, gather strength, and one morning, perhaps sooner than I dare guess, break open into something green, fragile, and fiercely alive. Great work today. Every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to mastering your English listening and speaking skills. Remember, progress comes with patience and consistency. If this story inspired you or helped you in your learning, journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Easy English Spark channel for more lessons and stories. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep believing in your growth. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep shining.